method. I am so excited for today because we are speaking with the amazing financial coach, Maggie Germano, and incredible. She's helping young women. So introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry, I was a little delayed. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name is Maggie Germano, and I, like Jana said, I am a financial coach here in Washington, D.C. I've been a financial coach for women specifically over the past 7 to 12 months, and I'm very excited to be here to pass along some of my knowledge.
Awesome. Well, for me, this is really important to me because early on, starting out, financial literacy wasn't something that you were necessarily taught. So I kind of had to learn the to bounce back from that. So I'm really excited you're here to help our audience learn more on how to be financially savvy. So first question, what made you decide to start your own financial coaching business?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that was never my plan in my life in terms of my career. I've actually worked in the nonprofit sector doing environmental activism for most of my adult life. And then over the past 2 years, I've gotten involved in a lot of women's issues. And so I'm in a lot of different women's organizations here in DC. And being more actively involved in those organizations and being surrounded by women all the time, I started hearing a lot of information about how stressed everyone was about money, how there was just a lot of anxiety and shame and always feeling like there wasn't enough and that they would never get out of debt and never be able to save, never be able to feel like a real adult. And like you said, just not a lot of literacy there. And so I've always personally enjoyed personal finance and learning about money and things like that. And that was sort of a hobby of mine. And so as I was hearing these issues from other women, I started offering my support as a friend, like helping to build their budget, helping to come up with a plan to pay down their debt. And the more that I was doing that, the more that I realized that I really enjoyed it. And I got a lot of energy and excitement out of working one-on-one with these women to make them just generally feel better about money and feel less overwhelmed and try to provide that support to get rid of the shame that is around money, kind of like break that taboo of even talking about money, talking about your salary, talking about debt, things like that, and really give them the tools that they need moving forward to pay down their debt, to start saving, to reach their goals, whether that be traveling to different countries in the world or buying a house or quitting your job and running your own business. So just providing them with the confidence and the tools that they need for that. And since I love that so much, I thought, why can't I do that as my own business? And so I launched my business earlier this year in March.
That's awesome. Congratulations. And I see that you're getting a lot of traction as well. So yeah. That's amazing. Now you touched on something, and I want to get into debunking some of those financial myths.
Yeah.
So based on, your clients and what you've been hearing from your friends and everything, what are the biggest misconceptions about being financially responsible that you think are really crazy? And follow-up question, what should women be doing instead of following those myths?
That's a really good question. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that if you've been bad with money in your past, that means you're always going to be bad with money. Or if you are bad, I say, or just, that you've had financial issues either in the past or now, that you'll never really have it figured out, that that's just how you are. And I really don't believe that that's true, because I think, as with anything in the world, like the more you learn about something, the more you practice something, the better you're going to get. And you kind of just have to shift your mindset, which is a huge part of my work with my clients, is shifting that mindset, making them feel better, making them realize they're not a failure, that I'm here to give them the support that they need, but I'm not going to be there forever. And my goal is not to be helping them forever. It's to set them up to be able to do those things for themselves moving forward. And there's another misconception is that if you're currently in debt or you're not making a lot of money, that you can't make any progress towards paying down debt or saving. And so I think it's really important to know that you can do both. You can save, you can pay down your debt, even in tiny little chunks. So I tell people you can save $20 a month to start if like start little, because the smaller you start, the more it grows. Even if you're not paying attention to it, it steadily grows, and you have to set it and forget it, just have it go automatically, and then you'll see it build. And as you're earning more or you have less debt to pay down, the more that you can grow that, and you just have to start somewhere, basically.
I love that. I want to touch on something, and this wasn't part of what we discussed before, but you mentioned shifting that mindset, and I think that's really important. Can you elaborate on some ways in which you can shift your mindset?
Yeah, so I think it kind of depends on the individual person, the issues that they've had, the past that they've had, even the way that they've grown up. So, and I think the first step is identifying what your mindset is, figuring out where that comes from. So one of the first things I do with new clients is I send them a couple questionnaires to fill out so that I can get a basic idea of what their parents' relationship with money was, what their first memories about money were, and if they think money is inherently bad, or if people with money are inherently bad, and sort of trying to get a better understanding of where they're coming from emotionally. And that from there, I think they can recognize things that they didn't even know about before. I've had clients say, like, I didn't even realize that my parents are just as bad with money as I was, and that I've carried that moving forward in my life. And so the first step is just, like I said, just recognizing where you're coming from, what your emotions are, and then just taking little steps to change that. So my biggest thing is like, no shame, no judgment. I'm not going to make you feel bad about any decisions you're making. Like if a client comes to me and is like, I just put an extra $500 on my credit card, I'm not going to be like, how could you do that? Like, you're so dumb, because that's wrong, and it's not going to work. It's not going to help them feel better. It's not going to help them stop spending like that. So trying to cut back on the shame of money issues and spending and all of that, and just trying not to beat yourself up so much, and taking little steps to get to where you're going. And if you do fall back a little bit, it's not the end of the world, and you can start over again.
Is this something that you also do as part of your Money Circle events that you put on?
Yeah, sometimes it's so Money Circle is a Facebook group that I started, and also a monthly meeting that I have usually at my apartment here in DC. And so I created Money Circle because I wanted to create a community, a non-judgmental, supportive community of women who come together and talk about any different issues related to money, and can just really feel like they're part of something bigger and recognize that they're not alone. So in the Facebook group, we share articles, we share failings, we share questions. One of my clients just paid off a bunch of her medical debt, so she posted in there, and everybody was so proud of her and commenting on that. And so I really like that supportive aspect of it. So some of that goes on in there, and I'll share things in there about, like, don't be ashamed. Like, if you fall off the wagon, just get right back on. It's okay. We're all here. We're going through the same things. And so with the monthly meetings, the topics are different every month. So we had one a couple months ago about how to talk to your significant other about money issues so that you can get on the same page. And there was a lot of shame there, because sometimes the financial situation of your partner is very different from where you are, or your background is very different from theirs. And that can bring up shame. That can bring up not wanting to talk about it, and a lot of avoidance. And so that came out a lot in that meeting, which I thought was really important. This month is going to be a little lighter. We're going to be talking about how to celebrate the holidays and show your love to your friends and your family without just blowing your whole budget and spending all of your money and feeling like you've ruined your life after the new year. So yeah, it kind of varies between like the more serious topics and then a little bit lighter topics that are still really helpful for people.
Well, that sounds fun. Definitely send me a link. I'd love to attend that. I think that's so timely, especially with the holidays. I could actually use that. So
Great.
You'll most likely see.
Awesome.
So we just jumped in, but I want to take a second to just take a step back and answer the question of, why are we even having this conversation? Why is financial literacy and financial independence so important?
Mm-hmm. Well, like I had said, I've been involved in a lot of women's organizations over the past couple of years. I'm very passionate about women's rights and just being an independent person on my own. So a way that I've always tried to make sure that I can support myself, that I have savings, that I don't need anyone else's income in order to live the life that I'm currently living. And that's always made me feel more secure, a little bit safer, more independent. And I think that money is so deeply connected, or I know that money is so deeply connected to power and security and independence and just being able to live a happy, secure life. And a lot obviously over history, women have had to traditionally rely on either their family or maybe their husband, and they weren't really expected to either know what they were doing with money or earn money. And in fact, they were discouraged from doing that for a long time. And I think that that's disenfranchised a lot of people, a lot of women. Women in our older generations will end up getting divorced in their 60s and not know where any of the money is, and end up without any money, without any retirement savings, because they were relying on their husband, or maybe their husband died and their husband was the one who took care of all of the money issues, and they have no idea where the money is. They don't know what to do, and they feel completely lost and disempowered. And so it's really important to me for women to make this a priority in their lives, because this will set them up. Having a savings account, having a decent job, paying down your debt, having a plan moving forward will set you up to have a better life, regardless of how much you're earning or regardless of how much your living expenses are. If you're set up and you're aware of okay, I need to be able to support myself, and I need to be prepared in case of an emergency and not rely on someone else for those things, you're going to be able to achieve more in your life. And one of the things that really pushed me into starting this business was I was at a salary negotiation workshop, and the trainer asked us, what is one of the most important reasons you think you think that we should close the wage gap and that women should earn more money? And my response was, so that women are earning enough money that they could leave a potentially abusive situation or just a really unhappy home life and have the resources to leave and start over and live in a better way. And the trainer was like, oh, yeah, sure. I didn't think of that. And I was like, yeah, that's really important to me. I think I'm going to look and see where I can do this work. And so that's a very long-winded answer, but I think I answered your question.
No, that was a great answer. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think it is important that you need to start saving and thinking about your financial future now. I know, at least for me, when I was younger and I first graduated, I was like, oh no, I have 7 to 10 years before I have to worry about financial security. But no, it all starts adding up, like you said. Even if it's $20 per week or per month, it's important to start investing in yourself and your security now. So I think that's a great point and an awesome story. So I want to talk a bit about budgeting. And what are 3 ways women can start building a strong financial future now through developing their budget?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think that that's the place to start. So just figuring out exactly where your money is going, how much is coming in every month, how much is going out every month, and then identifying where it's actually going. It's actually really surprising to some that a lot of people don't even know how much they're earning every month. They don't know how much their paycheck is, and they don't know what's being taken out of their paycheck. And so sometimes they might get to the end of the month and be like, oh my God, I spent everything and I can barely pay my rent or my utilities. And so that's not it's not a financially responsible way to live, but it's just not a happy way to live, because you're going to be stressed out every time you get to that time of the month. So I think the first step is setting up even just a Google spreadsheet and write okay, this is how much is coming in every month, and then this is how much is going out in terms of your fixed expenses. So those are things that typically don't change every month. So your rent, your utilities, things like Netflix, Hulu, your phone bill, any student loan payments you have or credit card payments that you are paying the same every month, anything, or insurance, anything like that, that is always the same every month. You can always rely on that. And then look at what you're actually spending on other things. So this is like your flex spending, it's called. So that would be groceries, shopping, maybe getting your hair cut, going out to eat, things like that. So those are things that can change every month, and you have more of you have more power over where that money is going and how much you're spending in those arenas. And so if you're tracking, even if you just go back to last month and see how much you spent on those things, you're like, wow, I didn't realize I was spending that much money on lunch every week. That's too much. Like, I don't want to be spending that much on lunch because that's not my top priority, having $15 lunch every day. My priority is to be able to go to like Iceland next summer, and I could be saving that $50 to $75 a week that I'm spending on lunch and put it into a savings account for travel. So just figuring out where your money's going. Yeah.
Awesome. I think that's really great. And you shared a budgeting worksheet, so I'll put that up on the Mentor Method website as well so that people can download that.
Great.
And also go to maggiegermano.com. So we have some questions from some of our members. So the first question coming in is that there continues to be a debate about whether renting or buying is best for millennials with a lot of student loan debt and relatively low salaries. How should young professionals think about renting versus buying?
So that's a good question, and I think it comes up a lot, and it's also a very complicated question, especially now. So we are just coming out of the Great Recession. A lot of us graduated either during or after the Great Recession. So we're kind of used to being saddled with a ton of debt and not earning a lot of money. And we look at older generations, and it was just a given that they would be owning their homes. And now it's just not really the same for us. And so I don't think that means that you shouldn't buy, but I also don't think that it makes sense to think that renting is like a complete waste of money, because a lot more money and responsibility comes with owning a home. And if you're not financially ready for that, you might end up really hurting yourself financially moving forward. So I think it depends on your current situation. So if you have a lot of debt and a low salary, I don't really think it makes sense to buy a home unless you live in a very affordable area of the country and down payments are low and mortgages are low, and you know for a fact you'd be able to afford that without ending up losing your home. And because you have to also remember that by owning, you're the one who has to pay for any repairs. You're the one who has to stay home from work and wait for the guy to come fix your fridge or plumbing or, whatever it is. So just those are things that we don't necessarily think about when we're thinking about owning, that there's just a lot more to it. But if it's something that you really want to do and you want to try to make happen, I would say sit down and make a pros and cons list. Like, how much am I paying now? How much is the typical mortgage? Or how much would a mortgage be for a house that costs what I want? And figure out, like, does it make sense right now? And if it doesn't make sense right now, especially if you don't have a lot of income and you're paying off your debt, you're going to need to save up for a down payment, because a lot of people aren't going to just have that money sitting to the side. It'd be, tens of thousands of dollars depending on where you're living, especially in DC. It's a lot more expensive than that. So I think making a pros and cons list, comparing, really taking a serious look at where your money's going, how much is coming in, and how much you would have to start saving to be able to even have a down payment for a home. And also keeping track of your credit score, because your credit score is going to affect what your interest rate on your mortgage would be. And that could end up either saving you or costing you potentially tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars extra in your what you end up paying for your mortgage over time.
Next question, and this one's a little bit longer. So the next question is about the low rates of return on CDs, saving accounts, and other low-risk financial vehicles. Before we dive into that, it'd be good just to have you define those first so that our viewers can kind of keep track with how you answer the next question. Would you mind just defining CDs, saving accounts, and other low-risk financial vehicles?
Sure. So a CD is a certificate of deposit. It's sort of like an account that you usually would get through your bank, where it has a certain amount of money that you put in there. Some of them have like you have to put at least $1,000 in there, and then you can't touch it for, you know, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. It depends. CDs have different terms, and so they used to be a good way to save. Oh no, I'll talk about the other ways of saving before I get into that. So savings account is just like an account you would have with your bank. So instead of it being where you're pulling your money to pay for things like your checking account, your savings account is just where you're putting money to hold it for later. And the difference between a checking account and a savings account is, for a savings account, you're usually getting some interest onto your money. So you're like potentially growing that money. And then other low risk ways of growing your money, one that I can think of now is like a bond. So a bond is like you're basically lending money to the government. You're giving them money and they give you like a sheet of paper saying, this is a bond, like we owe you. And so the idea of that is that that grows over time and you end up making money off of what the government borrowed from you. Unfortunately, these things used to be really great when our parents were kids, or even just a little bit younger. So CDs had really high interest returns. So if you put $1,000 into a 2-year CD, you would end up seeing it grow a lot more. I'm not sure like what kind of percentage rate necessarily, but it would matter that you would put it in there. You would have earned some good money and see a good return. Same with bonds. Your grandpa would put, $100 aside in a bond for you, and when you cash it when you were older, it was a lot more money. Same with savings accounts. So the interest return on savings accounts would be a lot higher. So you would see every month, instead of now where it's like 15 cents on your savings account, it would be more than that. And now, unfortunately, it's just not the way it is. CDs have pretty much the same interest return as a regular savings account. So I don't think CDs make a ton of sense in terms of saving for short-term things. So unless you're the kind of person who's afraid that you're going to pull your money out of your savings account and spend it, even though you're trying to save it, that might be a time to use a CD, because if you take that money out, you end up getting charged a fee. So you get punished for that. But otherwise, if you really needed your savings money for an emergency, you would have to pay a fee to get that money out. And so you'd be punishing yourself twice. And plus, like I said, they're just not getting a good interest return. You're not really growing your money that way. And bonds are the same way. I recently found bonds that my grandfather had bought for me. I don't remember. They were like $25 each, and they grew like, I think there were 3 of them, and they grew like $10 over 30 years. I was like, oh, that is so not fair. Like, what? I might as well just never cash these. And so hopefully maybe they'll be more valuable eventually and they'll start growing more, but I'm not relying on that. And so in terms of the actual regular savings accounts, what I recommend for growing your money that way is to at least switch your savings account to an online bank. Like there's Ally Bank, there's Synchronicity, I think it's called. I can share some more of that information with you later too. But so these online banks where they don't have in-person branches, they don't have the brick and mortar fronts where they have to pay a lot of overhead. So they have more money to be able to give you interest returns on your savings account. So a regular bank, your interest return would be like 0.005, which when I had a brick and mortar bank, I was getting literally 20 cents in my savings account every month. And I had a decent savings account. So I was like, this is crazy. And so I switched to Ally Bank, and now I'm getting like $16 a month, which is still, it doesn't sound like a ton of money, but it's way more than I was getting. And that ends up being, over time, I'm getting more money that I wasn't even putting in there. So That's my one recommendation for doing that. But other than that, there's not great ways to grow your money in like a short-term, low-risk way. So I would just recommend just save it, just put it away. Don't worry as much about the return until, you know, later on when you're earning more and you have the extra money to be maybe investing in other places.
And when you're ready for that, talk to Maggie, because she's a financial expert and she'll be able to help you. So my last question, what tips do you have for married couples who are looking to start a family?
That's a good question. So I am not a married woman. I am not thinking about starting a family yet, maybe within the next few years, 5 years or so. But like I said, I mentioned earlier, I had that one money circle where we got together and talked about how to talk to your partner. So I think it's incredibly important to be on the same page financially before anything else. So you need to sit down and decide if you have the same goals financially, if you have the same goals for your potential family. So do you want to own a house together? Do you want to be able to save money to pay for your child's college, or are you going to have your kid take out their own loans when they're older? Because those are just things that if you don't talk about them, you don't necessarily know. And so therefore you're unable to plan for them because you're not planning together, you're not saving together. You need to make sure that your partner is putting that money aside while you're also putting that money aside. So I think it's really important to just sit down, figure out what you both want, and get on the same page. And if you're not on the same page, where can you compromise? What's more important? Who has stronger feelings about one thing over the other? And just being able to negotiate those things so that you're getting ahead of it before those things even happen. And I think making sure that you're working on paying down your debt, not necessarily like if you own a house, your mortgage, you're going to have that for a really long time. That's not something you need to really rush to pay down. But if you have credit card debt that you're worried about, start chipping away at that before you really get serious about starting a family, so that you feel financially stable when you do have your child, so that you don't have to worry about supporting your child.
That's great feedback. Anything else before we wrap up? Anything that's coming up for you? Any promotions that you have right now? Any last bits of financial savvy advice that you'd like to share?
Sure. Well, like I mentioned, I have a money circle this month. It's on a Sunday. I usually have it during the week, but this month, since Thanksgiving is coming up, I'm having it on Sunday, November 20th at 11 a.m. They're usually 2 hours. I'm hosting it at my apartment, and I will be having mimosas and baked goods since it's a brunch time session. And we'll be talking about how to celebrate the holidays and show your love to your family and friends without breaking your bank, because there are ways to make that happen. Let's see. I'm speaking at your speed mentoring event and next week, I think it is. So that's exciting. I'm really looking forward to that. And I think, and like I mentioned, I do the Money Circle events every month. So if you want to join the Money Circle Facebook group, that would be awesome, because I'm always posting it there. Follow me on social media. I'm Maggie Germano pretty much everywhere. And I'm always posting about what's going on there. And I post financial tips most days too. But I guess a tip to end with is you're not alone. And if you've struggled with money or debt or anything like that, you're not the only one. It doesn't make you a moral failure, and there's a way out of it. You just have to take the small steps to get there, and reach out to me if you have questions, if you feel like you need support, if you need a coach, just reach out to me, and I'm really happy to help anyone that is in your mentee program.
Awesome. Maggie, thank you. You who are watching this interview with Maggie, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Maggie directly. Twitter handle at Maggie Germano, and feel free to visit our website, thementormethod.com, for more information on how to further advance your career through awesome next level mentorship. Bye.
Thanks so much.